for America 2024, a Newsmax special town hall event with Republican presidential candidate Ron DeSantis.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to America's heartland in Urbandale, Iowa. I'm Eric Bowling.
And I'm Bianca Della Garza. We are so pleased to be surrounded here. We have a terrific audience with us tonight, and we are at the Living History Farms. We're presenting a Newsmax special this evening, 2024 Presidential Town Hall with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Governor, great to have you with us this evening.
You know, it's great to be in Iowa, but we have three Floridians on the stage doing a town hall in Iowa, so it just shows you how interesting American democracy is. You know, I always tell people when I'm in Iowa and other parts of the Midwest, especially as we get into the winter, normally when I want to talk to people in the Midwest, I just go to Fort Myers in January because half the Midwest migrates there. Yes. And we've got all these wonderful people with the great Midwestern charm down in Florida, but it's good to be up in Iowa.
We flipped it.
And we'd like to point out that we have First Lady of Florida, Casey DeSantis, sitting front row, front and center. Thank you so much.
Folks, in tonight's town hall, Governor DeSantis will be answering a wide range of questions in the minds of American voters, of course, heading into this Thanksgiving holiday, which we hope you get to enjoy with all your friends and loved ones. And of course, heading into the all-important 2024 Iowa caucuses. Can you believe just 2 months away? So without any further ado, we're going to dive right into it.
All right. So we wanted to start this with something that I think Bianca and I were discussing before the show. How do you start this? And what's the one thing that maybe the GOP is missing the messaging on? And I believe abortion is the one issue that it's a third rail. I get it. But there's no clear, concise, and correct message on abortion. Let's take a listen to Governor Nikki Haley and her messaging on abortion for a second.
Democrats have scared people, thinking that their rights are going to go away, and Republicans have judged people, and both are wrong. We shouldn't use fear or judgment with any of this. We need to use respect when we're dealing with something that's personal.
Now, Governor, correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't hear an abortion message in that comment by Governor Haley. You can comment on that and then tell us what's the right GOP message on abortion.
Well, look, I think that we stand for a culture of life, and that's something that's very important to a lot of people. It's something, of course, you're respectful. We have a big, diverse country. Not everyone's going to agree on anything, but part of what stands for a culture of life means, and I think the Republicans and pro-lifers have not been as good at articulating this, is that's pro-life for the whole life. And so, for example, in Florida, we've said, you know what, we want to help moms. We've made all baby items tax-free permanently. Diapers, wipes, baby food, all that stuff, because it's hard to raise kids in this day and age. My wife, Casey, has launched an initiative called Hope Florida, which people come in for welfare benefits. A lot of times it's single moms. Instead of just doing government bureaucracy, doing a check, she's got churches and synagogues and charities and businesses plugged in what's called the care portal. The mom has needs. It goes out to the community. And guess what? These folks come and then they're giving a helping hand. When you have a young mom with a kid that needs help, when they are with the church or they're with these charities, they don't go back for government assistance. And so I think we've got to recognize, especially in an era of Biden inflation, raising kids is not easy. And we've got to do a better job of being there for people who are struggling to get by.
If I may follow up, is there a date? Is there 9 weeks, 12 weeks, 13, 15, 20 exceptions for incest and others? Your thoughts?
Well, in Florida, the legislature passed a law that I signed, which protected the unborn baby when there's a detectable heartbeat. That's similar to what was done in Iowa, but they did provide those exceptions for those very difficult cases, rape, incest, life of the mother, and as well for victims of human trafficking. But there's other states that probably would do it a little bit differently. So I think that with Dobbs, it took the decision out of the courts, which the founding fathers never anticipated this issue being there, and it returned it to the American people. So there's going to be a debate that happens in these states. Look, I look at like a California, they will fund it with tax dollars all the way up to the moment of birth. That is wrong, and that should not stand in this country.
We are going to get into some of the differences with California as well, but we do have a question from audience member. Kristen's with us tonight. She has a question, Governor, about abortion specifically.
Yes. Hi, Governor. I'm Kristen. I'm from Grimes, and I work in finance. And just to expand on the abortion question, with the recent pro-abortion victories in different parts of the countries, and we all have to admit that the pro-abortion lobby did win those, how do we present a clearer message supportive of life? How do we challenge the pro-abortion lobby that wants abortion on demand up to the moment of birth?
Well, thanks for the question, and you're right. I think that those referenda have all gone in one direction. The Ohio referenda was very disappointing because what was approved was very, very radical. It created a right in Ohio's constitution to perform abortions up to the moment of birth. And I don't think that that's necessarily where most Ohioans really want to be. But what happens in these things is the left spends a huge amount of money. They mobilize, they do all this stuff. I have not seen conservatives and pro-lifers be able to match that. So when you have that massive imbalance, the media, we know which side the media is on, so that it ends up really distorting the messaging. So you got to put more emphasis on when those are on the ballot. You've got to put your money where your mouth is, and you've got to be willing to stand for life. You can articulate it clearly, but when they're outspending you 4 or 5 to 1, it makes it very difficult for that message to get through.
Kristen, thank you for that question. Governor, moving from protecting the unborn, also protecting our innocent children, we want to talk a little bit about Disney as a corporation. Obviously, its wokeness has become sort of a cornerstone centerpiece for the culture wars discussion that's happening all across our country now. But it's more than just in the court of public opinion. As you know very well, it's in an actual court. And next month, a federal judge will be hearing a dismissal you're seeking against Disney in the litigation. Disney's come out and said, well, we're also a big employer in the state of Florida as well. So tell us how you reconcile this, going after Disney, but also knowing that there are people in Florida, your constituents, who do depend on them for their money, their livelihood.
Well, first of all, Disney came after us. We had legislation to protect kids and parents from having sexualized curriculum in elementary school. It is wrong to teach a kindergartner that they were born in the wrong body or that their gender is a choice. You should not have that in schools. The left didn't like it, the media, and Disney came out after us on that, and we fought back. And you know what? Most Disney employees in Florida sided with us. They did not want the company getting involved in our curriculum. They thought it was wrong. And I actually won massively in Osceola County, which is where most of the Disney employees live. And oh, by the way, I saved more jobs for Disney, and I made them more money than any governor in the country because I kept them open during COVID. They were closed in California for over a year. I got the cast members back into their jobs. We got Disney. Our state boomed. They made a lot of money off of it. But here's the thing. We have to draw a line in the sand when it comes to the innocence of our children. I am not going to lay down if they're coming after our kids. My wife and I have a 6'5" and a 3-year-old at home. This is personal to us. You should be able to have your kids go to school, watch cartoons, just be kids without having an agenda shoved down their throat. So I don't care if it's the left. I don't care if it's the media. I don't care if it's the most powerful corporation in the state of Florida. I am standing with our kids.
Do you think they'll toss the lawsuit?
Oh, yeah, they're going to dismiss the lawsuit. The lawsuit's bogus. First of all, we didn't do anything. The legislature didn't do anything to Disney. The legislature changed the local governance structure, which Disney had corrupted over many years, and basically was running this local government for itself. And that's not the right, that wasn't what is right. So it was basically a form of corporate welfare. So the legislature made changes they had every right to do. We're not going to subsidize corporations. We shouldn't be subsidizing them, period. It's corporate welfare. But certainly you shouldn't be subsidizing corporations that are advancing an agenda that's hostile to children and parents. Not on my watch. We're not doing that.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Governor, switching pace a little bit, let's talk a little bit about the debates. Donald Trump had said, I believe today or yesterday, he said, RNC, Ron McDaniel, time to cancel the rest of the GOP debates. You've been very, very popular on these debates. Talk to us about the RNC canceling the debates and Trump's refusal to show up at the debate. Should he show up and why?
Well, we need to have debates. Whether the RNC should be the ones that are controlling that, I don't know that that's necessarily the right way. That's how it's gone. Maybe as we get forward, maybe there'll be more freewheeling debates. I mean, I'd love to do a debate on Newsmax. We get the former president and me. Let's just have at it for an hour. I think we would do it on your.
Hold on, I'm getting a note in my ear right now. Your books.
Okay.
Now we got to get
we'll
the
do
other
it.
side.
We'll do it on your show. We'll make it happen. So I think it's important. But listen, I find it funny. People say cancel debates and stuff. Last time I checked, the people decide who they want to nominate and who they want to elect. And Iowans are going to get a chance to do that. So we're going to be showing up debates. I mean, we're going to do the debate with Gavin Newsom on November 30th. We're going to do the Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I believe it's December 6th.
Yeah.
I've been saying we need a debate in Iowa before the Iowa caucus. We got to do that. And we need a debate. And we need a debate in New Hampshire before that primary. So hopefully they'll be able to do that. I think the debates are better when you have fewer people on stage. That first debate, there was 8 people, and it was harder to get a word in edgewise. As it gets down to 2 or 3, I think it's going to be a lot more meaningful.
Which 2 or 3? You brought it up.
Right.
Well, look, me and hopefully Donald Trump and whoever wants to be the third can come. I mean, that's fine. But I do think he should debate. I think he owes it to the people to debate. He needs to prove that he's going to be able to handle this. And so, but I'll be there. I mean, I'll show up and we're going to debate.
Well, we have a question with Whitney. She's with Moms for Liberty, and she is here to ask you about education, a very important topic.
Hello, sir. My name is Whitney. I'm from Altoona. I'm a school board member, and I am also a Mom for Liberty, a very proud Mom for Liberty. Education is of premier importance to our survival as a nation. How do you plan to assure that schools are giving a solid education and not pushing the woke ideology?
Well, Whitney, thank you for the question. Thanks for what you're doing. It's important. If we allow our schools to be captured by woke ideology, we are going to consign the next generation of Americans to failure, and this country is not going to succeed. So our mantra in Florida has been the purpose of our schools is to educate, not to indoctrinate. We don't want things like critical race theory in our K through 12 schools. We mentioned fighting Disney to get the gender ideology out of the schools. Let's focus on basics of education. And here's the thing. The more you go off into the indoctrination tangent, the worse the students perform on the things that really matter. So I think we just have lost focus as a society. One of the things I've done in Florida, and I want to take this nationwide, is, okay, it's fine to say what we're not for. Yeah, we don't want critical race theory. We don't want gender ideology. Of course not. But what do we want? What I want in the schools is to put American civics back in a big way. I want the Constitution taught. I want people to understand our founding principles. I want our students to understand what it means to be an American. When we're graduating students from like high school, they're going to go off in a bunch of different ways in terms of how they're going to pursue their life, but all of them will be called upon to exercise the duties of being an American citizen. And I believe we have responsibility to graduate people who aren't just blank slates, that they have a solid foundation. They know that our rights come from God, not from the government. They understand that the Constitution is limited and enumerated powers, not unlimited federal power over society. So we have to understand these things, and we've really dropped the ball the last generation. When Benjamin Franklin walked out of the Constitutional Convention after the founders created the Constitution, he was asked, "Did you give us a republic or a monarchy?" And his answer was a republic if you can keep it. Because he understood you can have the best Constitution and Declaration of Independence in the world. They don't run on autopilot. Every generation of Americans has got to be a custodian of freedom and liberty. And if our students don't understand that, then we are going to lose this country.
That's why many people believe that this election is one of the most, if not the most important of our time. I want to talk to you about endorsements. Over the weekend, Trump picked up one from Texas Governor Abbott, but you have a very important endorsement here in the state of Iowa from Governor Kim Reynolds. Tell us why you think she endorsed you, Governor DeSantis, and not Donald Trump.
Well, what she said in her own words was that she's watched what we've done in Florida, and she said that Governor DeSantis is the most effective leader I've ever seen. And he's the guy that can go in there, of course, win the election, but also deliver on all the things we know that needs to be done. We need to reverse Bidenomics. We need to get prices down, interest rates down. We need to open up all of our energy for production to lower gas prices and get energy costs down. We need to stop the invasion at the southern border. I will build the border wall. I will impose fees on the remittances so that will go to fund the border wall. And we're going to hold the Mexican drug cartels accountable for the carnage that they're creating in this society. I'm going to treat them like a foreign terrorist organization. We got to ensure that we revitalize our military. Day one as commander-in-chief, I'm taking all the woke out, throwing it in the garbage. We're getting the military back to mission first. We're not going to let China eat our lunch. We're going to have a strong military that's going to deter China from realizing its ambitions. Yes, we're going to do the education, like was asked earlier. And we're also going to make sure that families can raise their kids in peace and security. I don't care if you live in a red state or a blue city. Criminals need to be held accountable for their crimes in this country. We can't let the inmates run the asylum. And then finally, we have to rein in the administrative state and end the weaponization of government. When I get in, you're going to see a new sheriff in town for the FBI, the DOJ, the IRS. You're going to see me bring a reckoning for all the agencies that harmed this country during COVID, NIH, CDC, FDA. There's going to be big, big changes in Washington.
Governor, the other endorsement that happened over the last 48 hours or so, Governor Abbott of Texas endorsed Donald Trump. Now, Abbott in Texas and DeSantis in Florida have some of the same issues. Did it surprise you that Trump got that endorsement and not you?
No, not at all. I mean, I think they've had a relationship for a long time. We've been a state that has been very forward in helping Texas at the border. I mean, we sent troops there in 2021, and we've had people on and off over the last few years helping to stop the invasion that's coming in. Texas has actually had to build its own border wall because it's just wide open down there. So they've had to put stuff in. We've had guys that have been helping on that. And of course, we did a program to transport illegal aliens to sanctuary jurisdictions such as Martha's Vineyard. And you know what? That had a huge impact on how people perceive this issue. They didn't want to talk about it. Then we did that. Abbott sent to Manhattan. It's been a big deal. And so now you have Democrat voters, more liberal voters in these areas that are saying this has to stop. So I can tell you this, as president, we'll make sure everyone in Texas will know this invasion stops when I become the president of the United States.
Well, it is just one of the many topics that you touched on. There's so much more we're going to get into this evening. Obviously, the world's a very perilous place. And when we come back, we'll also talk about the Biden administration giving the leading state sponsor of terrorism, Iran, access to billions of dollars. Of course, stay right here on Newsmax. Our special town hall with 2024 Republican presidential candidate Ron DeSantis continues. We're just getting started. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to our special Newsmax town hall with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Governor, really good having you. Switch the focus overseas a little foreign policy. The Biden administration famously unfroze $6 billion to the Iranians recently, and we've just learned that they've unfroze another $10 billion to the Iranians. Weigh in on that, and also, is there any question in your mind that some of that money, the Iranian money, ends up in the hands of people who want to kill us and Israelis like Hamas and others?
No question. That's what Iran, they're hardwired to foment jihad throughout the Middle East and throughout the world as best they can. What Biden has done has empowered an enemy, and he knowingly did that because he thinks somehow he can get a deal with them. You're not going to get a deal with them. They have an ideology that is adverse to both Israel and the United States. And it's personal to me because when I was on active duty serving in Iraq, most of the deaths that our troops were suffering at the time I was there was actually not by al-Qaeda and Sunni jihadists. It was by Iranian-backed Shia militias. They funded these Shia militias. They were directed by people like Qasem Soleimani, and they killed hundreds of our service members. And then, of course, this year was the 40th anniversary of the Beirut bombing of the Beirut Marine Corps barracks. That was orchestrated by the Iranians. So they have a lot of American blood on their hand. The Hamas attack against Israel would not have happened if they had bankrupted Iran like they should have been doing. So this is one of the worst parts of Biden's foreign policy. And even to this day, he will not call out Iran for their role in advancing terrorism throughout the Middle East.
Why? What's behind that?
I think it goes back to Obama. Obama had this idea that the whole reason Iran doesn't like us is somehow our fault. And he thinks it's blame America first. He thinks we supported the Shah in the 70s and that the Ayatollah came in and that was a response to America that was quote unquote justified. That is not true. This regime, the Ayatollah, they are a jihadist regime. They want to impose Islamic extremism all across the world, and they're hardwired to do that, and they are never going to want to get along with the United States of America. But Obama did his Iran deal, which empowered them. The Trump administration smartly unwound that. Biden comes in, and he did even more sanctions relief than even Obama did, and we see the results, not just in the Middle East, but in other parts of the world where they're helping other adversaries.
I'm sorry, Bianca. Would a President Ron DeSantis use military force, American soldiers, against Iran?
Well, look, I mean, we defend our country. I mean, I'm not going to go launch a war for kicks. But I would say this: we will turn every financial screw so that they don't have money flowing into the regime. I actually just signed legislation in Florida. We called the special session of legislature. We expanded our state-based Iran sanctions, doing the opposite of Biden. Now, look, we're one state, but if we were our own country, Florida would be the 13th largest economy in the world. So it is going to make an impact. I hope other states do it. So we will turn that very, very closely. Now, we have troops in the Middle East right now that Biden has in Syria and Iraq. I'm not sure what their mission is, but when the Iranians are taking pot shots at them, you can't just let your troops be subjected to attacks without adequate response. So he's inviting more attacks, and that is wrong.
Yeah, and the Pentagon's actually concerned about that as well, that there's the action that's being taken instead of de-escalating is actually showing escalation now. And if you're present there, when we talk about our ally Israel, how far will you go to defend her? Are we talking possibly American involvement as well?
Well, here's the thing with Israel. This is why I've always been a strong supporter, one of many reasons, even providing military aid like Iron Dome, because they don't ask us to fight wars for them. They're not asking us to displace their obligations to defend themselves. They take what we do, and that complements what they do. But they want to be able to do this. They're not asking for any American troops. That wouldn't be appropriate. But the one thing we can do more than anything is to just stand with them publicly and privately, in word and in deed, and say, you have the right to defend yourself to the hilt. And that means the complete destruction of Hamas and the terrorist infrastructure. You can't live with an enemy right across your border. It's not like they just had dispute over some boundary. Hamas wants to wipe every Jew in Israel off the map. They want to annihilate Israel. They want a second Holocaust. They have every right to defend themselves. And I'm sick of the United Nations taking pot shots at Israel. We should defund the United Nations. I mean, it is a disgrace what it is doing. I'm sick of the media attacking Israel, saying they blew up a hospital, which wasn't true. I'm sick of some of these rogue countries piling on. So what they need more than anything is America stands with them. They have every right to finish the job.
Well, on that, Governor, Jody is here, and she has a question on supporting Israel.
Welcome to Urbandale. My name is Jody, and I'm out of Johnston. If you were president, how would you ensure that Israel had everything she needs to stop Hamas and root them out once and for all and stop the aggression of Iranian regime?
Well, thanks, Jody. It's an important question. I would clearly do much different than what Biden's doing. He's saying he supports Israel, and then he turns around and he kneecaps Israel behind the scenes. That's wrong. So they'll have our unwavering support. Yes, we continue with military support, Iron Dome, some of those things that we have a relationship with. We absolutely will do that, and we will provide them with the support so that they can fight and win the war. And as I told Eric, we're going to turn the screws on the Iranians. We're going to understand that they are hostile to this country, hostile to Israel, and stop sending them money. Stop letting them get this. I mean, Obama airlifted billions of dollars in cash and dropped it off in Iran when he was president. Biden has opened the spigot. They're making huge amounts of money on selling oil. And then, of course, China's buying oil from them off the black market. So Iran, ultimately, we are going to deep six their entire economy with our sanctions, and they're not going to be able to fund Hezbollah and Hamas like they have under this administration.
Thanks, Jordan. We have seen a surge of anti-Semitism, especially on college campuses, Governor, and it's been sickening for so many people. Recently, you deactivated University of Florida, this pro-Palestinian group. They call themselves Students for Justice in Palestine. It's a national group, but you deactivated them in your state. Now they're actually suing you, saying you're violating their free speech. They have a right. Tell us why. Some of your opponents have also attacked you and saying we need to protect speech even that we don't like. You say clearly this is not about free speech. Explain that.
Because that group, when the attacks happened, they put out a statement saying, we don't just stand in solidarity with Hamas, we are one and the same as this Hamas movement. So that takes it out of being free speech when you hitch your wagon to a terrorist group. For the universities in Florida to provide any type of financial support for a student group, that's effectively providing material support for a terrorist organization. So we'll fight this battle, we'll win this battle, but if you look at what's going on in college campuses, it's way worse than even I thought, and I've signed legislation in Florida to combat anti-Semitism on college campuses. Some of this is being driven at places like MIT by foreign students. So when I'm president, you have a foreign student visa and you're making common cause with Hamas, I'm canceling your visa and I am sending you home. We're not going to put up with it.
Yes.
And it's a larger issue with these universities. Florida's universities, our university presidents put out very strong statements condemning the terrorist attack and saying we're not going to let anti-Semitism proliferate on our campuses. You look at Harvard and Penn and what those presidents are doing, they're groveling.
MIT just backtracked and said they wouldn't do it because it would be a visa issue.
To these angry mobs. And here's the thing. These are angry mobs that are chasing Jewish students. These Jewish students are running for their lives in some of these places. I have friends in Florida whose kids don't feel safe to go back to campus in some of these places in the Northeast and other parts of the country. That is unacceptable in the United States of America. But what's happened is you have anti-Semitism that's bubbled up unlike anything we've seen in our lifetime, but it has the institutional backing of some of the most august universities in this country. And so these are institutions that have been corrupted by ideology. That's why when I'm president, we're going to get after the whole accreditation cartel. We're not going to be accrediting universities who are indoctrinating students. We're going to be accrediting universities who are fulfilling the traditional mission of the university, the pursuit of truth and preparing students to be citizens of this republic.
All right, I believe we have a question from the town hall audience. Sir, state your name because I didn't get your name. Go ahead.
Good evening, Governor. This is Jeff from Johnston, Iowa as well, joining the Johnston crew here from earlier. My question is around Ukraine. Yesterday, the Washington Post came out with a pretty convincing case that President Biden has us engaged in an optional proxy war with Russia over Ukraine. What is your plan as president to get us out of this war?
Well, thanks for that. I mean, I said my job as president is to end this war. I mean, like, we cannot be having something go on for years and years, plowing in all this money. I would never have sent, they sent money to pay salaries for Ukrainian bureaucrats, pensions, social welfare. I would have never sent any of that money. We've provided a lot of defensive weaponry. Now what's happened is, because Congress has kind of been at a logjam on this, the Europeans are now stepping up and they're providing support. That's what should have happened from the beginning. This is in Europe's backyard. I want to work with our NATO allies, but they need to take the lead on this. So we're going to insist on that happens, because we don't have the bandwidth to do what we need to do to deter China in the Indo-Pacific and be doing potentially hundreds of billions of dollars more in Europe. So Europe takes the lead on that. I'm happy to support their efforts at bringing this to a conclusion. We got to get a lasting peace in that region, and I think we all have an interest in doing that. But what we don't want is for this to drag on for many more years, and you know what's going to end up happening? It'll likely be a similar outcome to what we have right now. And that's not good for anybody.
All right, folks, we have so much more to get to, so we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with our special 2024 Town Hall with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
Welcome back, everyone. This evening, our Newsmax Town Hall special with Governor Ron DeSantis. So let's get into the border, Governor. You've been very clear at what you would like to see happen to cartel members at our southern border. Let's play this.
We're going to have rules of engagement at the border. So if these cartels are breaking into a wall and cutting a piece out of the wall and moving product in, that's going to be the last thing those people have ever done, because they're going to end up stone cold dead.
Well, all right. That's a strong statement there. Shoot the cartel members as they come into the country. You know, and some say, so are you advocating, do you stand by that? You're advocating on-site execution without due process there in that.
Well, it's not an execution. I mean, they are invading our country and killing our citizens by tens of thousands with fentanyl overdoses. They're also sex trafficking a lot of people into our country. So you not only have a right, you have a duty to respond in kind. So we're going to treat them as akin to foreign terrorist organizations, similar to how we would do after 9/11. If you have somebody, you identify them, you can use deadly military force. We're going to treat it as a military problem because what we're doing now obviously isn't working and people are dying. So I think once you do that and once you show you're willing to do that, there's going to be a big change in behavior because they are not going to want to put up with that. But it is absolutely within our right. If we have foreign nationals, foreign terrorists infiltrating our country and killing our people, to fight back.
And you think that will be the deterrence there? Why do you think it hasn't been done so far? I mean, Texas is pretty strong with, wanting to secure the border.
Texas can't do it. I think only the federal government can do it. I mean, you're basically engaging in military operations against a hostile enemy force. States, I think, have been loath to do that. So I think it's got to come from the federal government. Now, I will also, as president, empower states to enforce immigration law in a way that courts have blocked states from doing before up to this point. So Texas, if someone comes over, they should be able to send them back across the border. Why do they have to be turned over to Border Patrol then released into this country? It makes no sense. So we are going to work collaboratively with states, but we're going to have all of our assets from the United States that are going to be mobilized, and not just ground assets. We're going to have maritime assets. So when the precursor chemicals are coming into Mexico, we will potentially be interdicting that as well because lives are at stake. And I'm sick. I meet these mothers, these angel moms who have lost kids to fentanyl overdose. And the thing you see all over and over, their kids by and large were not addicted to drugs. They were doing something. Some of them were stressed out, taking exams. Someone told them if you just take a pill, it'll help you get through. And it happened to be laced with fentanyl. And that's enough to have a fatal overdose. That's poisoning these people. And you lose all these kids, high school, college kids, by the tens of thousands. And I just think we should say enough is enough.
Very good. Very good. Governor, let's turn to the economy a little bit. I'm a resident of Florida. The Florida economy is vibrant. It's on fire. It's doing extremely well. And I watched Governor Newsom in California. I'm looking at 13% state income tax, gas prices through the roof. Horrible, horrible economy. I can't imagine why anyone would want to live in that state. No offense, California, anyone from California. Why is your economy better, and which would be better for a 50-state national economy, and why? And what's your message to Newsom?
Well, obviously, Florida's model would be better. I mean, I think California is there. That's the petri dish of American leftism. They're basically 5 years ahead of where Biden wants to go. And it may not even be Biden. They may put Newsom, or who knows what they'll do. But California model for the whole country would just accelerate this country's decline, and it will hollow out this country. Florida really shows, you know what? We've got problems, but we can surmount these problems. It can be done. We have one of the lowest tax burdens in the country. We have paid down 25% of our state's total debt from the inception of statehood to the present. We've paid down 25% just since I've been governor. We've cut taxes every year by a lot. We have spending focusing on things that matter, education, infrastructure, all that. We've got a very good business environment. But there was a huge distinction when COVID hit. Because you had places like California, they kept their theme parks closed and all these businesses closed for a long time. In Florida, we said, you know what? We've got to get moving again. So we reopened the economy. We stuck by that through thick and thin, even though I was taking all kind of incoming from the media, from Fauci, from all these people. That helped really Florida boom. And then I think we've done things like been really strong on law and order. People aren't safe in San Francisco or Los Angeles. I mean, I was out there for the debate, my wife and I, for the Reagan Library debate, and we ran into probably a dozen people that had been mugged in the last year in Southern California. That's not normal, yet that's what it is. So the people that are fleeing to Florida, one of the big things is public safety. The other thing is education. We focused on empowering parents. We've gotten ideology out of the schools. That attracts families because they're so sensitive about what's going on there. And then I think we've depoliticized our economy by kneecapping things like ESG. So we don't have that in our pension. We took $2 billion away from BlackRock. We banned the use of social credit scores and a central bank digital currency. We don't recognize that in the state of Florida. So people, I think, have confidence that our economy is not going to be overwhelmed with this agenda to use business to impose basically a left-wing agenda.
Very quickly, I'm sorry. Governor Newsom cleaned up the city of San Francisco in anticipation of President Xi coming to visit. Would you welcome President Xi in Florida?
No, we wouldn't do that. I think that when you see what happens, he went over to China and groveled to Xi, and then they do all this, like this. San Francisco's a pigsty, but because it's Xi, then they do all this stuff. They actually clean the feces off the sidewalk. They cleaned up some of the drug use, all this stuff. But it just shows you, that's the boss coming in there that these guys are all genuflect to. You saw these CEOs paying $40,000 to be able to sit there and dine with him. They did a standing ovation when he gave a speech. That's not how I roll with this. I think China is a threat to this country. I think we need to decouple our economy from China. We rely on China for pharmaceuticals, things involving military equipment, all these things that are key to national survival. We got to go through China. Why would we want to put ourselves in that predicament? So this has happened over many decades. A lot of people on Wall Street made money, there's no question, but it has weakened this country and it has strengthened an adversary. We were promised that if you do most favored nation and put them in the WTO, that China would become more democratic. It's been the opposite. They're much more authoritarian today than they were 20, 25 years ago, and their military is much stronger today than it was 20, 25 years ago.
I want to ask you spend a moment on COVID.
No, by the way, just on the China stuff, so not only would we not welcome, we've already taken action. We banned China from buying land in the state of Florida. We kicked out the Confucius Institute from our universities because we understand the threat, and so it's not exactly something, I had one of the, I think it was Haley, was like trying to attack, because she really invited China in as governor. She was the #1 governor to have China invest, including CCP-backed businesses. She tried to say like I was involved. I'm like, wait a minute, I banned China from buying land. That's not exactly a very good recruiting pitch for businesses if you're not letting them buy land.
All right, folks, on that note, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis when we return.
We are here in Iowa tonight. Welcome back to our special Newsmax Town Hall with Governor Ron DeSantis.
So we have a very special birthday today, Governor. Joe Biden is 81 years old today. Now, we've heard you say that he's too old to be president. He's the oldest president in American history, but you've said Trump is too old to be president as well. What's too old and what's not too old to be president?
Well, clearly, Biden should not be running again, and he should not be doing this. I think it's very selfish what he's doing, because, look, the age is part of it, but I think if you look at where he was 4 years ago to now, you see the decline. I mean, look, this is father time. This is just the nature of life that this happens. And if you're a pilot for an airline, they make you retire at 65. So if you can't pilot a plane, somehow at 81, you can pilot the United States of America. And we see he's totally lost step. I mean, it's a daily embarrassment. So I would hope that he wouldn't do that. Here's what I think, though, just for Republicans. If Biden does decide to continue running, if we run a candidate that can make that generational contrast an issue, that's going to be a huge benefit for us. On the flip side, if we run somebody that's pushing 80 and they decide to go someone in the next generation, I think that gives them an advantage. I really do, in terms of the electability and whatnot. So I'll go in there. I'm in the prime of my life. Day one, we will take on all these sacred cows, spit nails, and we'll do it for 2 terms, for 8 years, be able to do the people's business, high energy, a lot of vitality, and we will deliver big results.
Do you think it will be Biden? You kind of alluded that you still think there could be something else.
So here's what I think. I think that the Democrats know the age. It's a big issue with voters, I think, and so I think that they want him. I think they want someone else. But they also know they can't just push him aside. He's got to agree. He's the sitting president. And I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know if he's going to be willing to do it. But Republican voters, the Iowa caucus goers, you should assume that it may not be Biden. So when you're looking at the choice about who would be the best candidate for us, put someone up that would be able to go against Biden or Harris or Newsom or any of these people and be able to get the job done. And I think I'm the guy to do it.
All right. You've been spending a lot of time in Iowa. Obviously, you've almost hit every county close to that.
98 of 99 counties we've done.
So people here are getting that one-on-one with you. But obviously, there's also the left-wing media that has a different, well, I'm just going to say less flattering version of you. We have a little montage here, Governor DeSantis, if you will indulge us. Let's play this clip.
Ron DeSantis is our greatest threat to democracy.
He has shown that he is willing to break the spirit and the letter of the law to promote his own political agenda, and that's extremely dangerous for democracy.
I've made the point about DeSantis that I think he's functionally authoritarian.
A lot of freedoms under siege for a place that Ron DeSantis claims to be a bastion of freedom.
Ron DeSantis is worse than Donald Trump.
Ooh.
Well, I mean, I wear those criticisms like a badge of honor. But think about what some of these people are saying. You have the head of the National Teachers Union who sued Florida because we had schools open during COVID. She wanted to lock the kids out of school. How is that something that's promoting freedom? You have Newsom. He imposed draconian mandates on his people, far beyond when it was obvious that they were destructive. He clung to it. He locked them down, and then he went and partied at the French Laundry, and basically telling everyone, let them eat cake. So these folks, they don't put their money where their mouth is. We've actually stood up and done things that have made people's lives better. And I can cite you statistics chapter and verse, but I don't even need to do that. People are moving into Florida because we've created an oasis of freedom. They're leaving California, they're leaving New York, and they're leaving Illinois because those states have infringed on people's well-being and their freedoms.
Very good. Very good.
Very good.
All right, folks, let's do this. Let's take a quick break because we have a lot more. So don't go anywhere. Florida Governor DeSantis takes some rapid-fire questions. We'll be right back. Welcome back to a fantastic town hall hour with Governor Ron DeSantis. We want to ask the governor some rapid fire, some fun questions, and we kind of made them up in the break before. Governor, the state of Florida has 3 professional football teams. You have the Miami Dolphins, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Jacksonville Jaguars. What's your team? And when you go to a game, what do you put on your hot dog?
So I grew up in the Tampa Bay area, so I've been a Bucs fan since they were the orange popsicle uniforms, when they would play in the old sombrero, and they would basically have a losing season after losing season. When they won the Super Bowl 2002, that was like a huge deal, and that we never thought happening. And then more recently, when we got Tom Brady, that was a huge shot in the arm. Of course, Tom won another Super Bowl for Tampa. So I've done, it's interesting. My son's 5. He's really into the NFL now. And so I got him into the Bucs and Brady. But then I thought, when Brady was getting ready to retire, I was like, maybe I got to get him into the Jags. They have a young quarterback. So we took him to the playoff games and everything like that. He became a big Jags fan. But I'll tell you, he also likes the Dolphins because of how good Tua is and everything like that. So he will literally go back and forth on Sundays and watch these games. It's really, really good. For hot dogs, I just do mustard on the hot dog.
Very good. Did you notice he got all 3 football teams in?
I know.
That's good.
Smooth.
Casey, that's good work.
Yeah.
That's good work.
Well, since we are in Iowa, Governor, is it bacon or sausage?
I prefer bacon.
Okay.
I'll tell you this. When you're traveling all these counties, you get to try a bunch of stuff. So it's like, we're down in the southern part of the state, and you want to talk about Midwest beef. We've had some of the best beef that I've ever had in our travels. But then, if you're in the northern part of the state, kind of, near the Minnesota border, things like cheese curds. They've got unbelievable cheese curds. Like my wife and I are eating these cheese curds. Really good, very good dairy and ice cream and stuff. So we've been able to kind of see all throughout thing. Another thing interesting about Iowa, since you mentioned sports teams, if you're in Des Moines, kind of a mix, but if you're in Southwest, it's like Chiefs, right? If you're north, a lot of it is the Vikings. And then I'd say southeast, you get mixed, but some Bears and things like that. So there's a bunch of different allegiances in different parts of the state here.
Indeed.
Got to keep it all straight. Well, it's been such a pleasure tonight, and so terrific to have this fantastic audience asking really important questions that impact not just Iowa, but our entire nation. So a big thank you to all of you participating tonight. And thank you so much, Governor DeSantis.
Thanks, guys. We got to do this in Florida sometime.
Deal.
There she is. There's Casey. Thank you both for coming. Thank you for setting it up. Big thank you, by the way, to Team DeSantis, who did a great job helping us get this town hall to you. And a big shout out to the Living History Farm. It's a museum here. It's amazing in Urbandale, Iowa. And to our amazing audience, everyone here, thank you all. Give yourself a round of applause if you don't mind. Have a great night, folks, and keep it on Newsmax all night. Thank you.